February 8th is the feast of St. Josephine Bakhita. St. Josephine Bakhita is actually a very important saint to me. I actually attended her canonization on October 1st, 2000. It was actually the first canonization I had ever attended. I had just moved to Rome as a seminarian, and I had the benefit of seeing Pope John Paul II canonize her along with several other saints. So it was a big moment to see this square filled with people. And so I promised myself that I would get to know who this Josephine Bakhita was, because I didn't know who she was on the day of that canonization. Josephine Bakhita has a great story, and because I am the pastor of two predominantly African-American parishes, I sort of am trying to introduce a devotion to St. Josephine, because she has so many great things that she can teach us. In fact, at one of my parishes, St. Dominic's, we have a dance group called the Bakhita Dancers, which are, of course, named after St. Josephine Bakhita. Bakhita actually is a word that means lucky, and it's a word it was a name that was given to her when she was kidnapped in 1875. She was just 6 years old at the time. She was born in DARFUR in Sudan in Africa, which of course to this day still has troubles even 150 years after she was born. And it was she was born just after our own Civil War, which kind of makes things very interesting, as she was eventually sold into slavery. The people that kidnapped her named her Bakhita, named her Lucky. And of course, I don't know how lucky she really was, but it was a name that stuck with her until she became baptized and took the name Josephine later on in her life. St. Josephine was actually traded to several different people. She actually got away from one group of owners and just ran right into another group of slave traders, which sold her again. Several of them were very mean to her, beat her within an inch of her life, and finally, gracefully, she was sold to the Italian Consul, Callisto Legnan, who was the consul to that area of Africa, who eventually brought her back to Italy with him. Now, in Italy, slavery was not legal anymore at this time, but she was still, basically enslaved to the household. She did the work for them. She helped them raise their children. And the household paid her back by sending her to school with the Canossian Sisters. When she traveled back to Italy, she actually changed families, and she was given to Augusto Michieli, who actually paid for her education. And she lived in Venice and went to school, as I mentioned, with the Canossian Sisters. And she eventually became a catechist around 1888. So she was she was just a little over 20 years old at that time, about 23. In 1890, she was baptized, confirmed, and given First Holy Communion on January the 9th. And this was, by her own account, one of the most important days of her life as she received baptism. It's one of the most important days of your life as well, even if you don't quite remember it because you were a little baby. After this, in 1896, just a few years later, in 1893, she became a novitiate for the Canossian Sisters. In 1896, she made her perpetual vows. She made her temporary religious profession, and in 1927, she became a fully professed sister of the Canossian Sisters, where she had a great influence on them. She wrote, and she eventually died in August of 1927. So she is a saint who's lived within some of our lifetimes, certainly within the last 100 years, and I just think that she's a great example of someone who came out of slavery into the freedom of God's grace. St. Josephine has some great quotes here, which I'm going to share with you right now. And St. Josephine said things like this: "I have given everything to my master. He will take care of me. The best thing for us is not what we consider best, but what the Lord considers best. I received the sacrament of baptism with such joy that only angels could describe. O Lord, if I could fly to my people and tell them of your goodness at the top of my voice, oh, how many souls would be won. And finally, the Lord has loved me so much, we must love everyone, and we must be compassionate." So St. Josephine Bakhita is a great example. My office here at St. John and St. Dominic is called the Bakhita Center, named after her, and it's someone who I think you should get to know. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and remember you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/joshua.wagner, and also at Stump the Priest on Twitter. Every Wednesday night we have Wednesdays with Wagner, which is a live Bible study, catechism study. We study a saint, and I take questions live, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday nights, and it's, of course, taped afterwards. So I hope you have a blessed and great day.